All right, well, let's go ahead and kick us all off while we still have some people joining here and there. But thank you all for joining us. This is Master SEO Strategies to Elevate Your Institution's Online Presence. So we have a fantastic panelist. I'll start off with some introductions, and then we'll break into some questions for the panelists to hopefully highlight some of the key pain points that everybody's been feeling with SEO, give you some actual walkaway strategies as well to kind of hit those key discussion points about like setting goals and enhancing the user experience, how to use AI with SEO, those kind of topics. So I am Samantha Cormester. I am the marketing manager for MDT Marketing. I have been with them for 5 years. So my main client with MDT is MDT itself. So that's always the fun part. I get to go to all the different conferences and meet all the amazing people. So that's why we have this amazing panels, because I get to go and meet all these people in person. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it over to Rustam, since he's just on my left in my screen right now. So Rustam, if you want to introduce yourself, kind of name, rank, and serial numbers, whatever that looks like. And then I've got a fun question for you, which is, if your SEO strategy was a 90s toy, which one would it be and why? So,
Okay.
Rustam, take us away.
All right. Thanks so much, Samantha. Great to be on. Rustam Irani with RGI Marketing and Consulting, the president and founder. We've been now 2 years into the business, 15 plus years in higher ed, especially on the marketing side. And really, we work with institutions, schools across the career college, trade school, and then all the way even through the traditional space, and help them build, craft marketing strategies and teams to help with obviously enrollment growth or whatever those strategies and tactics might be on their side. So as far as the toy, I would say, so I'd probably say, like, on my end, remote control cars. I was pretty big into them in I guess my high school years in the early 90s, late 80s. And so and the great thing, I guess, about remote control cars is, and how it relates kind of to SEO, I would say, is kind of you've got, everybody has their car, and you're able to modify it, adapt it to kind of take you down whatever path you could take it, down whatever path you want. I think it kind of relates where, similar to SEO, like you want to be there at that right moment when somebody brings their remote control car to online, or when they're searching, you want to be there for them. And so I know that's kind of a roundabout and probably not the best analogy there, but I wasn't.
I thought that was pretty good, actually. I was like, remote control, that's perfect.
All right.
Especially as those are coming back, the remote control cars. There's a lot of people into those right now. I have a few buddies of mine that they're really into those right now. All right, we're going to shoot it over to Linda. And Linda, if you want to introduce yourself to the crowd.
Hi, everybody. My name is Linda King. I am the Director of Marketing for a technical school, Western Technical College out here in El Paso, Texas. We are a locally owned trade school, been around for over 50 years, 12 different programs of study, so it's pretty diverse. 2 campuses here locally as well, so I have been with them for about 11 years, actually. So it's been a fun time.
Wow, yes. So what is your 90s toy SEO strategy? What 90s toy would kind of give you like an essence of what your strategy is for SEO?
So I think, in essence, what we strive for our strategies to be, I would have to go with a Furby. Those were pretty popular back in the 90s. I think they were attention grabbing, right? Which is what we aim for our SEO strategies to be. We want them to be memorable and attract new attention. I think the Furbies were also very engaging, not only with their owners, but also with other Furbies. If you all remember, they would talk to each other.
That's right.
So I think engaging and interactive also is something that we strive for, that I know I strive for in my SEO strategy, and also the personalization piece of it, just making sure that we're targeting our audiences the way that we want to be. We're being creative and I think the Furbies also did that back in the day too, when they would interact with their owners. So I'm going to go with the Furby.
Good choice.
I like it.
I know that was like super popular back in the day, and just I know my sister had one. So, all right, Charlie, you troublemaker, you. It is your turn to introduce yourself and tell us about your 90s toy that is similar to your SEO strategy.
Yeah, those are some good ones. Now I'm blushing. Charlie Parker here. Good to meet everybody virtually. What a fine group we're with. So I'm really excited to just really listen to them and be a participant myself. I work for Aviation Institute of Maintenance, Ventura College, and Tidewater Tech. I'm the chief branding officer. We've got 20 campuses throughout the US. We're mainly trades driven, but we do have a good allied health flavor with our Ventura College. And so we're kind of you can look at personas and things like that. We kind of cater to everybody. I'm definitely more of a top of funnel guy. I mean, I believe in graduates and things like that, but my expertise is more on top of funnel and taking them all the way to start. So there's that. For the 90s toy, I went right to Nokia 6160, if you guys know what that is. And that was one of the first cell phones that came out that were smaller, that had Nokia branded on it, and you put it on your belt and you thought you were super cool and super important. And I definitely wasn't. But I've been in the industry since. What's that?
Did it have the green screen?
Wait, I'm getting there. Just as a host, hold on. Just wait for it. So I've been in the industry for a little bit, thus the Nokia comment, and that's back when I first started in education. So I've been annoying people for 20 plus years on that side. But why the Nokia is important is they had a game called Snake, if you guys remember it. Oh, yeah. And Brian reminds me of this every once in a while. And it basically is you go to where the puck is, right? You set yourself up. And in Snake, if you guys have ever played it, because the tail gets longer as you gobble up things, you got to be really careful, and you kind of got to look at that white space and go there. And for me, SEO is kind of like that, right? I mean, we kind of want to go where the puck is with good content, good relatable content, good tagged up, good word uses, so it drives into our website and items like that. And so that would be my 90s toy rather, my Nokia 6160 with the great game Snake on it.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for that. Took me a minute and I was like, I don't know what he's talking about.
I was glad I wasn't the snake. I'm like, okay, we'll go with Wayne Gretzky.
I had one of those.
There's so many versions of this, but it's not appropriate for more audience now. So.
It was my first cell phone.
Brian, to round us out, Brian is with MDT Marketing. So Brian, go ahead and give us a nice introduction to you.
It is awesome to be here with our friends and clients to talk about SEO. I am our sales systems engineer at MDT. I just looked down and I've been here since 2011, and in like 2 days, it will be to the day.
Wow.
Which is cool. I have expertise in lead generation, lead nurturing, and I look forward to the discussion. For my 90s toy, I'm going to go with Pogs, if anyone knows what that is. But basically, you build a stack of your Pogs of expertise, authority, and trust. Google comes over with their slammer, slams it onto your Pogs, flipping it over, flipping your content into disarray. They're taking it, and then they take your content and hoard it to themselves. And that might be a little bit of an analogy for their AI going on in the SERPs. So
that's an angry toy.
Yeah.
But Brian has the best way to like take anything in marketing and just kind of break it into these stories that are very relatable and very just bring you down to earth. He's definitely,
and he has the best videos.
Seriously, the cookie one still was one of my favorites. Even though the Star Wars ones I'm all over because I'm a big nerd that way, but cookie, running away from the cookie just still cracks me up every single time. Or having you be curled up in your trunk. That one was pretty good too. All right, so if you haven't caught Brian's content on LinkedIn, definitely go and do that because it's hilarious.
Thanks,
I might just find it more funny because he's a coworker, but all right. Well, to kick us off, I'm going to go ahead and start off with a really quick poll for the audience. As you can tell, we have a bit of a 90s theme. Because it's one of my favorite eras. So we're going to go ahead, and this one's about SEO goal setting, which is something that we're going to jump into first with the panelists here. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that for everyone. So pretty much your top SEO goal is like a song. Which one is it? So we've got The Sign by Ace of Base, which is pretty much focused on gaining visibility. You Can't Touch This by MC Hammer. You want to dominate the search pieces. And then you got Waterfalls. You're taking a measured approach. Or Vogue from Madonna, which is all about optimizing user experience. So go ahead and select those, and we'll kind of get back to that in just a second after we go ahead and we'll jump right into asking our first question of the panelists. Now, as I go through these questions, this is more for the panelists. As I go through the questions, feel free to chime in. So I'm going to kind of have somebody kick us off, but then everybody else, please make sure you go ahead and add your thoughts to that as well. We're all here to share our expertise with everyone that's registered. So, and anybody who isn't going to be able to make it live. So starting us off, actually, I'm going to start with ladies first, Linda. And so
Yay!
What are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in optimizing your institution's SEO, and how have you overcome them?
Oh, that was a loaded question. But before I go into that, I want to say that your choice of music in that poll was awesome. So good job on that. I am a Madonna fan, so I probably would have selected that one just by being a fan. But going back to the question, I would say let's start with the obvious, which is keeping up with Google. Their algorithms and the constant changes that they're making sometimes becomes very challenging for us to keep up with. I mean, and I'm sure other people in other companies and industries have faced that as well. So I'm also going to say that with that, as I mentioned earlier in my introduction, we have 12 different programs of study that vary from hard trades to business to technology to the health industry. So it's almost as if we don't have just one product, even though we are selling education. The demographics of each of those individuals going into those different industries are like night and day. So sometimes I fight with not wanting to overload the content that we're putting out there. Sometimes I want to be very mindful and careful of that, and making sure that we're still reaching our demographic and we're still creating some content that is of quality and that's just not going out there and it's cluttered, and that our message gets lost with all the different initiatives that we're trying to accomplish, trying to reach these different demographics. And that might be a little different for other companies if they only have one product, or if their demographic is virtually the same. As I mentioned, ours is very different by night and day. So lastly, I would say one of the biggest challenges is just the competition that's out there. Keeping up with that. They're all falling into the technology. They're all embracing the technology. There's new things happening every day. So I think just keeping up with that and making sure that we're ahead of the game is also a challenge. It's a fun challenge, but nonetheless, it is a challenge. So how we overcome that is constant research. We're constantly researching, making sure that what we're putting out there is meeting our key performance indicators, that we are reaching these goals. One thing that I do appreciate that keeps me in line and keeps me on track is the weekly meetings that I do have with my SEO team. So I think that's very, very important, is that you're constantly communicating what's working, what's not working, making those changes, finding those things that are not working for you and making those changes right away. And sometimes you have to take risks. Sometimes you kind of have to see what the A/B testing looks like and not be afraid to change things up. For so long, especially a company like Western Tech, we've been around for 55 years. So doing the same thing for such a long time has always worked. And so now trying to find different avenues and different strategies can sometimes be a challenge in its own. So I think you just have to also not be afraid to take some of those risks and make those changes and embrace the upcoming challenges and the upcoming changes that are coming in with our industry.
As you made such a really good point, that SEO is one of those things that I think some people think that they could just do it. Like, okay, I did my SEO, now I'm done. And it's kind of a set it and forget it kind of thing. And it's totally not. It lives and breathes. Anybody else? Go ahead.
I was just going to say really quick that I kind of feel like the stock market. Like, you just have to constantly be watching it and looking at it every day and be willing to make changes as you see things grow or not grow or change. So that's what I compare it to.
If you see like the reporting and stuff, a lot of times when I see the reporting for our SEO, it totally looks like a stock report because you've got the things and it's going up or down, or and some days it's down further than some other days. But really good for everybody else chimes in. We're just going to go ahead and share the results, and then everybody else go ahead and jump on in. What are some other key challenges you guys are seeing?
So, sorry, Russell and Brian, you're slow.
You're good. Go for it.
You're slow at the
Got me by a second. You hit the
Can't
button.
touch
Charlie
Charlie.
is really just on here to be our comic relief. So go ahead, Charlie.
Thank you for calling me the court jester. So, for me, I just pulled up a definition of evolve, and for us, and I think a lot of people, I think SEO evolves, and the definition of that is to develop gradually, especially from a simple to a more complex form. And I think, when you deal with people outside of marketing and things like that, they just want it, right? They just scream for it and things like that. And we were part of that. And we had really long blogs, content for content's sake. There really, really wasn't a mission to bring it all together. And finally, we sat back, and I will give MDT credit for this. And we looked at it and stepped back and said, we need the right people, right? You need a good content writer. You need someone that understands content, not necessarily a journal writer or a journalist or something like that. It can't be long, right? Because it serves a purpose. I mean, you're not really inviting someone to read your blog. You're inviting them to launch into your website. You're bringing them into the fold, so to speak. And I think that's been a big challenge for us, is how to get the right people on the right seat to deliver a full circle SEO type campaign. Samantha, you know this, back in the day, a couple of years ago, we pushed all our stock into organic social and SEO. I was just done. I was done on the paid side. I just wanted to move towards that. And I think the other thing that we've learned the hard way is transparency between other campaigns or categories, whatever you want to call them, but like organic social, paid social, what you're doing on your website, how you're doing that. We're going to talk about measuring it later, but those are the things that really kept me up at night to try to deliver to my stakeholders who didn't quite understand it. They just knew they wanted it. And then you've got to deliver that in a very succinct way. So if there's any advice I can say is don't go to Z, build a strong foundation for an SEO, driven campaign, have the right metrics in place that you want to look at, and invite transparency in other categories, because there's so much attribution that happens now because of Google's big sledgehammer that you have to be careful of and how it affects that. But good writing, not content for content's sake, getting good word use so it tags it up right from the consumer's point of view. And you're not writing it for someone to read. You're writing it for a purpose to support SEO and SEO traffic. And I think that to me is something that I've learned the hard way, and no book could have told me. I had to live through it.
Charlie, where did you look up the word evolve? Just out of curiosity, related to our search topic. What platform do you use?
What I always do, because I have such a limited vocabulary, Brian, is I just write evolve definition. So pretty simple.
Into Google or into ChatGPT?
No, I don't use ChatGPT. I use it if I feel stupid and I want to, get it and then humanize it. But I feel strongly that ChatGPT doesn't replace a human type thing. So I write evolve definition and go to the old Webster and the old guys that made definitions that I feel are sound, and that's where I got it from. So
Rock on.
you young poggers probably do it differently. But
just one thing that you just said, Charlie, though, kind of contrary to it a little bit, you said at the end where it's like SEO friendly content. I think that is key in one area, at least while I was on the school side and even kind of on the consulting side, working with a number of schools. You've got to balance that technical SEO with also prospect friendly content. You can't get people to a site where it's all keyword driven. It's not going to resonate. It's not going to be relevant. It's not going to give them a reason. Yeah, I have to, here's all these components of pharmacy, all these medications, and I've got this entire list, which is great from a keyword perspective. But at the end of the day, I just want to know, like, why would people use these medications? How am I going to benefit from being a pharmacist, right? To kind of create this impact in society, or whatever those whys are. I think that's the part that, to me, I think it's difficult, because you've got to have collaboration when you're building this content. You've got to have internal teams. You have to have the academics team. You have to have the marketing team. You got to have everybody kind of aligned on those core components. because and I think that's one of the keys. It's a little more difficult than just that. But I think that's one thing just to keep in mind, I would add.
No, well said, man, and edit that in for sure.
Definitely. Thank you, Rustam, for that. Because yes, definitely something we'll be getting into a little bit more is that technical side. Really quick though, we are going to circle back to more goal setting and specifics. So Charlie, I'm going to shoot this one over to you to kick us off because you're a big data guy. And I know that's something that you just live and breathe in dashboards of data. So what specific metrics or KPIs do you prioritize when defining success for SEO?
So first of all, we got to say this. I love data, but for specific data purposes, I have a really hard time for humongous dashboards and everything. I like keeping it very, very simple because of my simple mind. But there is a couple key things, and if I can be a proponent for a good solid CRM, so you can test things and you can see it from an analytic perspective, and in Power BI or some sort of product that can launch it into a GUI where you can set your tiles up and give you a peace of mind. One thing I'm very conscious of, Samantha, and I'd love to hear from everybody else is I still feel, and this is my age, but I feel like if data is given to someone on a platter, they don't own it. And so I'm the college student that wrote everything down like notes, right? Because I owned it then and I absorbed it then. But if someone gave me my notes, I didn't really appreciate it that much. So I just want to make that disclaimer on data that I think data can be very dangerous given and received if it's not applicable and you don't have really good KPIs. For SEO, we look at everything. We look at our impressions through social because of the impact of that. If you're going towards a conversion metrics and you got to have, good feel for attribution. And it's like the old days, you put Jerry Springer on, your phones will ring, right? So we try to look at the timing and even the shelf life of our blogs. And Rustam said that so perfectly is how does that equate to website spikes, right? How does it spike on lingering on there? How does it spike? For us, we have a quiz on there and I'm a proponent and not a proponent at the same time. But what I do know is that nurturing is the name of the game for me now. It's not necessarily buying new things, meaning leads. So I would rather have less leads and nurture them higher and get more propensity for conversion and impact to graduation, which I rely on that to drive to the website for quiz, low narrative, high creative, and things like that. So for me, it's very limited depending on kind of what I want to look at, but it's the merging of those areas like social, paid and unpaid, and seeing how the impressions are going, to see the shelf life of blogs, how they did test narrative. Like Rustam said, I'm a big proponent of surveys. Like, how do people talk, right? I'm 50, right? I know I look younger. I get that. I totally understand that, but I am 50 and I don't speak the same language. So I love learning their vernacular. Like, you even take it from text messaging or SEO when you're writing things. And so you need someone that understands that so it resonates, but it also hits the crawlers and also supports the subject of having a good website to capture that information. And so that's why when you look at the Dow Jones or something graphs on that, you probably want to get used to, taking lines. And I know you guys know what I'm talking about, I think, but, you take lines during your spikes and then you overlay that with your content and see, okay, what's the mature? How did it spike? Where did it spike to? How much time were on certain pages? What did they do? There's a whole science behind it. And I'll end it with this, Samantha. And I'm not using numbers because anybody on a blog, on a call like this is going to give you numbers that aren't true because they want to look good. And so I don't find valuable in numbers. I find value in the activity that drives those numbers. So that's why I'm giving it like this. But I'll use an example of for us how we build that out. And I want to bring Rustam's very thoughtful comment into that. We spent a lot of time merging what I would call good external attraction with narrative and brought in like our people that are directors of education, the people that do it every day, to understand the vernacular they use. And then we had to understand, okay, what are the keyword searches that people are using so we can tag that up? And that made into an art of a blog. And one thing that we've done wrong in the past, and we're starting to turn the corner on this, is we tried to get one person to do everything, right? They were doing social, they were doing blogs, they were doing this, they were taking pictures, they were, writing that. And I think a highly thought out, and Brian, Rustam, Linda, everybody, please speak on this. I think you need dedicated staff on that to really understand what their function is and how to look at it from a practical standpoint and from an efficiency standpoint for those lifts. But first and foremost, for us, and I don't know about you, they're going to come to us if they're a gearhead. If they got dirty nails and they're into that, there's not much we can do differently other than to make them feel comfortable as from a competitive standpoint. My thing with SEO is white space. I want to attract the people that don't even know who we are and capture them in a net and then bring them. And then you see the filter funnel down from there as it works through the process. So that's what I would say from a KPI or a milestone perspective and how you look at it.
It's a lot to
Awesome.
unpack there. If
Yeah.
I were to add, as far as having dedicated people, I would have collaboration's the word. So the subject matter experts, we want access to them, be able to like we are not if for instance, if we're using a gearhead, you're not necessarily the gearhead. We need the gearhead to be informing us. We need instructors to be informing us and things to that nature. As far as KPIs, and I'm interested in Rustam's take on this as well. They're tough. It's not an easy conversation because it's nuanced. So of course we want to look at leads. Of course we want to look at leads to enrollment. And for Charlie, respect to Charlie, I won't say the numbers that I see because you won't believe them anyway. But they are relatively better than most digital channels when you're looking at them comparatively. But there's a lot to the story that is obscured, whether intentionally or just the way the digital landscape works right now. So for instance, we know we're in a world where about half of searches result in 0 click. What's happening? Did they find what they wanted? Did they not? Did they research? So there's benefits to showing up there, and you're not going to necessarily show a direct line to leads, a direct line to enrollment. So you have to trust, do I understand our audience, in this case, our prospective students, what their needs are, what their goals are, and are we following best practices in how to stay in front of them? And to the point you made earlier, not just for the search engines, because even indirectly or we're looking at the Google antitrust situation and the clickstream data that SparkToro released. It looks like Google's using actual engagement data and click data to inform how they're going to rank you. So if you're not giving them what they need anyway as the user, you're going to hurt yourself in the search engine results pages. But yeah, so it's a very nuanced when you're looking at KPIs.
I just got to comment on that before Rustam, because I want you to digest too. On our social, we're off the charts. I mean, we've got a lot of market share on the work we've done over the last 2 years, and what hasn't kept up is kind of those buckets of Google, right? Those big market chunks that we're not capturing, and that's the part that comes next, right? For us to build it in there. And I would just say something on leads, and this is the hard thing with the wild west. I feel to some extent on this is there's a little bit of gut to this, and in CEOs and senior management or even boards, it's so hard to explain, right, Brian, to really help them understand that it's like, just let the medicine work for a little bit, right, and take its course, because you can see it. You see your conversions go up. What I see it is in start rate, bro. I see it at top of funnel, but I'm also seeing it with the longevity of our maturity of applications going through, right? And that's the things that I know is working, but it's so hard to connect the dots other than just trying to find some little navigational areas, if you get what I mean. Sorry, Rustam, I just wanted to add that to it.
No, and Linda actually has her hand raised. So Linda, I didn't have my hand raised. So if you want to jump in.
No, it's okay. You can go in. You're fine. I'll go in right after you.
I was just going to say to Brian's point, I think one thing that continues to make this difficult is the fact that 50+% of clicks are not coming through Google. Right. And so with the growth of and the transition to voice search, to TikTok search, to all these other platforms and all these other ways prospects are engaging, getting their information, and coming through and really finding out about our schools. I think that's fundamentally changing some of the data and how we look at the data. And it's becoming more and more difficult to directly attribute it to a specific channel. And I think that continues to be and will continue to be difficult, although there are ways to try to understand that as much as possible and at least carve out what each of the channels are doing in respect to what you believe they're contributing to the bottom line and or to traffic, right? And there are ways to do that in a smart way, not 100% one-to-one, but a good percentage. And I think with that, when you're looking at the analysis and you're looking at the reporting, it will give a better picture overall. But times are definitely changing, not just Google. So sorry, Linda.
It's okay. It's okay. I just kind of wanted to add and give some advice, I guess, on personal experience, since I've had the opportunity to not only be in the marketing role, but as a director of admissions, and different roles and capacity to different university and school as well. And so because times are changing and we are so involved and we're involved in all the technology and these seminars, and we're constantly educating ourselves as marketers on what we need to do and keep up with, I think sometimes we fail. And I think Charlie mentioned this a little bit, to communicate those to these individuals that are receiving these leads. And how are they receiving them? Where are they coming from? Admissions reps, their talk track is certainly not the same like it was, 10 years ago. And now they have all these different ways, and they have to be creative in how they're addressing these leads to help those conversions. And so I know that I have found that having either if it's monthly or bi-monthly, however often you feel you need to do it, is just having conversations with them about what I'm doing and my strategies and what I'm seeing, and then having that conversation and explaining to them what those strategies are and where they're coming from, what my goals are, and how I'm helping them be successful as well, so that they have a better idea of where the marketing is going, where are these dollars going, where are these leads coming from, and how do they approach these to kind of help those conversions. Because sometimes they just don't know what they don't know, and they just kind of feel like, well, all these leads are coming from and they're bad, or I don't know how to approach them, or now they're coming from different area codes and they're coming from Facebook and and they just don't know how to approach those. So I think from any institution, I think it's really, really important that you communicate the why, what's happening in your strategies, your own goals, where these leads are coming from. So, and then you help them talk through that and help them figure out what that is and what that talk track should sound like to better approach those leads and help those conversions from the back end as well.
It's a really good point, Linda. I know that there's been a couple of people that I've talked to that, again, they run smaller schools, and a lot of their inquiries come straight to a receptionist. And it's one of those positions, though, that they're constantly having to rehire somebody. There's constant training, but then the receptionist has to then transfer those to the right people. And if your communication from the top throughout the entire system isn't, solid, you miscommunicate certain things, and that student experience just really kind of falters a lot when there's miscommunication on that part.
Right.
If the one side doesn't know what the other side is doing, which happens a lot, especially with a marketing and admissions kind of position. It's just constant communication is needed.
And what we used to do, Linda, just to your point, it was on the school side, our team would do a roadshow, right? We would literally go and say, hey, this is how this channel works. This is why. Attribution, like, what does it mean? Forget attribution. It's like somebody saw us here and then went here, like, kind of breaking it down that way. So you're spot on that. I think that's huge. Education's huge.
I love that you call it the roadshow.
Yeah, the roadshow. Yep.
We forget about our internal people and think, that they're just enrolled, but they don't really realize all the changes that are happening in our world and what we need to do to continue to be in front of them and receiving those leads, and then they receive them, but yet they really don't understand it. So training them, having them understand what those strategies are, where they're coming from, and then talking through that. And sometimes you'd be surprised, because they're on the back end. They'll give you some good insight on what they're seeing from the leads that are coming in to help you adjust maybe your strategies on what's working, what's not working, that you may not see in the numbers.
Very true. Very true.
Yeah.
I know that one of our friends, Jen Lyles, has mentioned before that a lot of really good, yes, hello, Jen, has mentioned before, I'm pretty sure on a chat with Charlie, actually, that a lot of really good ideas come out of the admissions teams, because they are the ones building the relationship one-on-one there in person. Whereas marketing, we do our best to build a relationship digitally, but when you get that in-person relationship going, it's just so much stronger. To move us into, actually, this was a really great discussion, because then we're going to move into how SEO helps how does SEO help with enhancing the student journey and user experience? So Rustam, I'm going to have you start us off with this one. And if you could share a few examples of where focusing on like a UX led to better SEO outcomes.
Sure, sure. I mean, the reality is, going back to our friends at Google, like user experience is definitely a huge factor. In Google's algorithm, and that's like, page speed. Does it load fast? Is it mobile friendly? Is it easy to navigate? Like, those are critical factors, right? So, and that's all built into the user experience. That's all built into
have
that.
you repeat that one more time real loud for the people in back, because that's really important. And I think sometimes we take it for granted what we do know. So Rustam, go ahead and do that one more time. What is it? It's page speed. Go.
Page speed, mobile friendliness, right? Easy navigation. Those definitely are some of like the key factors, for Google. I mean, and for the user experience anyways, right? And when you have that, and when you have that type of experience, I mean, right away, not only are you providing like what that person's looking for in an easy way to kind of consume it, but you're also building trust, you're building credibility, right? And making things easy to find. There's so many different ways from a UX UI perspective that I think we sometimes take for granted, because we're like, no, this needs to be on the site, this needs to be on the page. How can we not put these 20 program features on the page? Like, from a keyword perspective, I won't even go there, but B, like every aspect of our program needs to be highlighted. And the reality is, sometimes people don't want to see all of that, right? Or you can, create multiple different ways to do that. And actually we've done that. So 2 examples, okay, cool, Samantha, thanks for sharing that. But 2 examples is like on a program page, right? Somebody's actually done the work to get to a program page. They're at a level where they've shown intent, right? They've either come to your main site, or they've gone directly from a specific keyword search. So why make it, difficult for them to get the right information about why they should be considering A, your school, and B, the program, right? And so one thing we've done over time, this has happened with a number of clients, but like program pages are known for this. Like all of a sudden somebody will come there and then they'll bounce. And so there's been many times when we've had program pages with high bounce rates, which is not a good sign, or a low time on site, or time on page. And so we've had to work through these things. Like, in some things is just making like clear, scannable program overviews, right? Interactive curriculum, widgets. Those are kind of easy to follow. Clear student testimonials, program specific, right? Even career guidance kind of webinars, and having links to some of those things, like, and then clear CTAs. Like, those are just some of the kind of check boxes that we've done. And those are just kind of some of the examples that incredibly made a huge impact. And some of the pages that we've worked on in the past, 20-30% improvement in conversion rates off of those pages on the CTA, on those specific program pages, right? It's just one example from a UX UI perspective. The other one that one of the first things we typically work on is when you're on the mobile experience, like, do you have a banner, or do you have something that scrolls along with the user, where at any point in that content, or any point they're scrolling, they can just click to call, click to chat, or click to get whatever request information, right? And it doesn't have to be like a big box right in your face, but at least have like a clean banner where it kind of follows through. And we saw significant lift when we've implemented that on some of the mobile experiences that we've looked through. And it can be nice and clean. It can be very user friendly. But those are things that just make things easier. And you can tell in the data shows it, right? Improves it. So those are just some examples kind of from my end, Samantha. But I mean, it's all about that, the user experience, because again, that's another huge factor, right? But I'd love to hear some other thoughts as well.
You hit a hot button for me in the form. It's something that I fixate on. And my thought, similar to what you were saying, is just give them what they want, get out of the way, remove the friction. And sometimes with these forms, I like to think of it like, how would this interaction go in real life? So if someone needs something from me or wants to be in touch, how would I do that? I'm taking their name, I'm taking their number, and a quick note on what we're going to be connecting on, and I'll be calling them. I don't need to walk them through the life story just for me to get back. That's what the call is hopefully we're going to explore and get additional context. And I think we kind of forget that when we're at our desks and trying to handle the lead flow and things like that, and try to control quality at the form, whether that's spam or intent.
I think
Don't
that
you
also,
think, Brian? Oops, sorry.
that's okay. Just really quick. So that also goes into a conversation that we've had a couple of times where we'll realize that if you have the form properly coded as well for the program, you don't need to have that part of it. So just it's different things, because I know a lot of different universities and colleges like to have as much information as they can give to the admissions team to help with the conversation, so they don't have to work so hard to get some details instead of just going into building a relationship and understanding their need for the education. But that's something else too, is just a lot of that technical side of SEO has to come from the back end. Go ahead, Charlie. What'd you have?
No, I was just going to say, Brian, and everybody too, but Brian in particular, because what he said, I think people, I mean, it's really a question. I think people overcomplicate. Your job is to optimize their search experience and insert yourself appropriately in there. And at times, I feel like we get in our own way by too much bells and whistles, too much, like everything has its purpose, right? If you take it from a sales perspective, it's incremental, right? Everything has a purpose for a milestone, and then that milestone moves on to something else for another milestone. And that's where you get the journey, so to speak. And that's how you take it all the way to start, which includes your question that Rustam answered so well. But Brian, don't you think like we just kind of get in our own way to some extent because we're in the weeds and we're always doing it, and we overcomplicate. We put too much sugar in the Kool-Aid, sometimes. And it's like, just follow it. Just follow it.
Yeah. I feel like that was another 90s reference.
And you could make the coolest widget when it's just like, call me.
How simple is that, right? And we get caught in, well, they don't use phones anymore. I'll tell you right now, they use phones, right? And I don't want to get on a tangent because this is SEO, but DM. I get like 2 pieces of mail today and there's nothing else there. And you know what I do now is I look at them because there's not a bunch of junk. So, I mean, you got to just step back and take an ease and take a breath and find the simplest approach, because humans are more educated and they want the easiest route to be your CRD, right? And I think if we truly take the name search engine optimization, we're there to optimize it. You know what I mean? And help their journey through search with all the other stuff we can talk about.
Search experience optimization.
Right, though. You get my point, though, is yeah. So.
Well, really quick, I do want to give the audience a chance to kind of answer another poll question on the maturity level of their SEO, kind of see where everybody's at, as well as we go into the Q&A section here in a second. We do have one more question. Hopefully we can get into a good discussion like we were just doing with the team. So here's your SEO maturity level poll question. When it comes to your SEO skills, which TV character are you? So this is a fun one as well, because again, we have a 90s theme going on for the call today. So you have Mulder from the X-Files, DJ Tanner from Full House, always had his hands full. I definitely relate to that. Zach Morris, Saved by the Bell, and Steve Urkel from Family Matters. So go ahead and you guys can select that as we kind of wrap up this last question. I want to make sure that Rustam or Linda, if you guys had any other thoughts on the UX experience and the effect it has on SEO. Any other thoughts? Now that I've broken it up a bit.
I think I just would want to add something to the lines that Charlie was mentioning, is making it simple, but also asking the user experience, which are our students, their experience. I know for me, I walk the halls a lot. I talk to students. We get little focus groups here and there, and we ask what's working, what's not, what they liked, what they didn't. We try to get with students that just started and kind of ask those same questions, and we try to simplify the questions as well, because as I believe Charlie mentioned, we get in our own heads and we try to, put too much sugar in the Kool-Aid, and we try to get all this information, and it overloads. And we already know what we need to do. We already know what the strategies need to look like. But sometimes we forget who the actual experience is, which is the students, and what's coming directly from them. Instead of trying to figure it out through data and through numbers, just go ask. Sit down and ask them.
I like it. I kind of did that stuff myself. I have a brother that went into HVAC, and I was like already in this position. I'm like, wait a minute, you just went through this. Like, how did you find your school? What were your decisions? Like, what were you thinking about? Hold on, let me give you a little survey questionnaire and interrogate him a bit. That is a really good point. I'm glad you added that. All right, one of our last questions for the panel that we have time for at least is, how do you see emerging technologies evolving let me start over. Whew. How do you see emerging technologies and evolving student behaviors impacting the future of SEO in higher education? What should institutions be preparing for now? So I know we've hit on this a little bit with the like the no-click stuff and whatnot. So Brian, I'm going to have you kick us off on this one, and then everybody else can go ahead and chime in.
I am so excited for this. I almost feel like I should be standing, but I don't want to mess up my framed shot here. Okay, so in short, how to prepare. Proactively continue I think the main principles are always going to remain, like anything in marketing, anything in fundamentals of how our schools have been successful. We want to keep in place the expertise, authority, and trust, and be delivering prospective students what they're looking for. But when we look at what's going to change as far as emerging technologies, there's two paths that we'd look at, and I'm going to geek out for a second. There's how education is going to change, which we can veer off on its own, and how people are finding education through search or their search for education. And then there's how the internet and the digital experience is going to change. Hot topic, AI and LLMs. So if I'm looking, and we're going to crystal ball here, make some predictions on how this could play out. And we're going to use some past experience and platforms as an example. So as I'm in ChatGPT or an LLM, I'm reminded of like early video games back in the day, before my day, where they were text-based experiences. Before computers had the processing power to have graphical interface, you were doing like RPGs, role-playing games, and your journey was text-based. And similar things here with the LLMs, where we know we're going to go into multimodal. And how does that experience change? Are we going to go beyond text? And for sure, we're already entering video. We have AR and VR that have been waiting in the wings. They've been maturing even before this big push on the LLM. So I'm excited to kind of leave our browser, leave our window where we just have the certain results, where it could be more of a search experience. And then we get into, well, AI, what's AI? Or Google's been using AI since 2013 with the Hummingbird update, where they were using machine learning. So it's been here for a while. I see Charlie laugh at as we're geeking out.
Dude, you are geeking out when you
You totally are.
Like when you went to Hummingbird, I was like, oh my gosh.
We are on the cusp of like our search and our search experience, where it's going to be our feedback loop, where they're learning about the users. They're, like I mentioned earlier, removing the friction. So when we have conversational, and we're able to give the input to these, I guess, models, they're going to tailor it more to us. They're going to have more data on what we're looking for. And the people that are serving us are going to have that same, serving us, or the advertisers are going to have that, they're going to remove the barrier to communicate all those data points. So basically, if we're heading and we're thinking about the OpenAI demo that they did, where it's literally conversational with ChatGPT, that's, as we have potentially personalized assistants that we're able to communicate with in real time, and they're anticipating our needs, where does that leave us and our schools from, if all the information is already in this hub, independent from the content creator or the ideas or the people that have the knowledge and expertise, and it's just, I don't know what it is. Is it Google? Is it your personal assistant? Is it ChatGPT? Where does that leave us? So again, there's a lot of parallels to what the main principles are in SEO right now, where it's continue to be the thought leader, continue to have that unique point of view. And as these AI or LLMs or whatever it may be are collecting knowledge from us, ultimately, at least in the ultimately when the user or the prospective student says, yeah, all this is great what you've taught me, but where am I going? This huge data is going to say, well, where have I been finding all of this useful information that my user, that the prospective student has found useful? Oh, it's our schools here, and that's where we're going to end up. So it's going to be a longer play. I think there'll be even less attribution and tools to even measure how we're doing, other than moral to the story we said earlier, trust that we're communicating the right things that are helpful to our prospective students, and continue to leverage for instance, link building will be dead. We need to be more behavioral focused, and social media engagement signals might be more of where SEO ends up as these things evolve.
All
Whew,
right, there's
I
a lot
geeked
to
out.
unpack there. Yes.
That's good.
Anybody else want to add into any of the other emerging technologies and the evolving student behaviors impacting the future of SEO? And while we think about that really quick, I'm going to share that DJ Tanner totally beat out everybody else. He was the only one everybody voted on. I hope it didn't sway the audience a little too much. So we do only have a few minutes left of the webinar here, and I want to make sure that I give a chance to have the audience ask any questions. So you guys do post, I did post something into the chat for everybody, so you can always throw your question in there, or if you can find the Q&A section, go ahead and throw it in there as well. But we'll go ahead and continue the conversation really quick, because I do have one where I kind of want to talk about, which I'm sure a lot of people want to know, is how is AI transforming SEO strategies like content creation, keyword research, and personalized student experiences? So I'm going to open this to the floor. Anybody who talks first can get in on this. Don't let it be Charlie, guys. Come on.
I'm going to say, where have you been all my life?
On the AI?
Yes, where have you been all my life? I'm a user of AI, and I use that to create content, ideas. You still have to tailor it. You still have to use your own branding and some of your own words. You can't just it's not a copy and paste type of thing. And I would definitely not encourage anybody to do something like that, because then you lose your brand, and you lose who, in my instance, would be Western Tech, and who we are, and our image, and what we've done for over the last 50 years. So, but it definitely allows me to get different perspectives. If it's something I need to do right away, it allows me to just, spit something out, and it just doesn't take so much time. I don't have to spend hours and get in this mode and get in this, okay, turn everything off and give myself hours and hours and hours to create content for commercials or radio scripts or TV scripts and things of that nature. So I know for me, it's simplified a lot of my duties and responsibilities. But I think it's going to continue to evolve, and it's going to continue to help individuals that are in these roles with automated writing and enhancements in their content, ability to do research on topics, and just expand individuals and companies' minds and branding and things that they want to do. So I think it's a good thing, and it should be embraced.
So I gave him a chance, Samantha. I gave him a chance.
I know they're so slow here.
I'm going to say something just really quick. You don't have to be first to be the best. And with AI and things like that, I think Linda did a great job of summarizing, and I feel exactly the same thing. But this is for anything. I think as a marketer, whether you got one school or 50 or 100, whatever, you got to be comfortable in who you are and the culture that you provide internally and externally. And there's a lot you can do. I mean, you just think of SEO. I could go down a litany of things. What works for you, and make it the best it can be. We're talking about SEO here, right? And I believe that's like drinking water for me. I mean, I've got to have that as a sustenance. But at the end of the day, there's so many things that a marketer that you're approached with and you can do, and you don't have to do everything. You just need to do right for your institution and do it in the right way. And don't feel like you have to be the first with everything. Do what's right for you. And I think Linda and everybody said it's for your students, and that's who you're catering to. And then for SEO, if you're starting from dirt, don't act like, you got an SEO, magic pill. Like you gotta build it, be deliberate, be smart. You gotta be a student of the game. There's many things that that you're a student of the game on that you may not be utilizing yet because you're not ready for it. So there's two aspects as a marketer. You got to be a student of the game, but at the same time in execution, you got to be deliberate on what your execution, how you're executing it, how you're measuring it, and making sure it's the outcomes that you want, not just because someone saw a TikTok ad and now they're like, why aren't we doing this type thing. So that's my 2 bits.
I like it.
And just going back to just real quick on the AI, kind of the future of it, like, again, to Charlie's point, about you don't have to be perfect with this stuff. Everybody's learning. Actually, it's amazing to me when I talk with folks who are supposedly, like, I thought were completely changing their businesses to an AI driven business, and they're like, no, this is how I use it, Rustam. I'm like, really? I've been using it like that for 4 months. I thought they were like miles ahead of me, but the reality is, like, there's so many tools, they're coming and going, but you should be prepared and you should constantly be learning and testing and trying things out. Like, there literally could be an experience where somebody's doing a voice search, gets to your websites, talks to your website, and your website is sending them information from the site based on their voice prompts, right? And that could be an experience that could happen, right? And so there's so many different paths to this that we could head down. But again, I just think that with AI, like, there's so many opportunities to use it as an assistant right now. But I think moving forward, keep testing ways to use it as more than potentially an assistant, right? To improve processes, whether it's internal operations, there's so many things. But it's just an exciting time to be around. I mean, it is so exciting to see what's going to happen. And it's really going to be fun.
Absolutely.
To Linda's point earlier on the feedback loop from students and using it to analyze sentiment, so you can scale how you're receiving feedback, how you're analyzing it, you're reporting, how you're taking action. I like the idea, Rustam, in from processes where if you can spec something out and you can't get to it. So for instance, this webinar, for example, if we can leverage AI to find the highlights and help us take our point of view here in our actual conversation and get us ahead or give us a head start so we can come back and then say, okay, I would change, come in from a video editing standpoint. It got us most of the way there or some of the way there. And now a human can come in and polish it with in our case, the MDT polish. Just using those tools where we give them the right direction to take us most of the way or a lot of the way.
Well, that is time. So I feel like that was a really great ending wrap up of our conversation, because I know a lot of people are trying to figure out the best ways to use the different AI tools and just different tools in general to help with the SEO, because SEO can be a monster to have to tackle. There's a lot of learning curve to it. A lot of people say they're experts at it. And some people, again, I know Rustam hit on it earlier, was it's not just about keywords, it's about the value, it's about the clicks, it's about the visitors, it's about, your bounce rate and stuff like that, your impressions and stuff. So hopefully this, again, answered all of your questions. If it didn't, again, feel free to reach out to the experts on this panel. Though, of course, Charlie will probably just guide you to Brian anyways. But you can definitely reach out, and we'll definitely be sending out the recording to everyone as a follow-up, and a thank you for joining us today. So thank you guys all so very much for being on the webinar.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
everybody.
great day.